Hi guys, this isn't an official tutorial, this is just how I do my own horses. For anyone who is having a bit of trouble and doesn't quite know how to get their horses going. I've been playing for years and years and years and years and have developed my own little thing, so it might be different from yours. Doesn't mean I'm right, you're wrong. Doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong. This is just how I do things. As you can see, I've got a lot of oldies at the moment, and I think my youngest age is 5. Because I tend to breed in spurts. I tend to breed large amounts of foals in one go. I just like that because then I can challenge them with each other rather than having a 5-year-old being challenged by a 12-year-old in its prime sort of thing. Although I will use 12-year-olds if they're jumping well that day. If I click on, say, a random horse, we've got my 19-year-old here. She jumps 78 inches. I explained in another video that 78 inches is pretty good. That is what I allow in my breeding program. I can afford to be picky now because I have quite a few good horses. Before my limit was 77. Now I will only breed from a 77 inch or 76 inch horse if I really like their lines and really want their lines in my stock. I have a horse right now who's at that stage. Where is he? He's down in this dude here. He only jumped 76.5. Very disappointing considering how much he cost and how well he's bred. I'll go through my breeding ones either in this video or another video, depending how long I talk in this one. But I really like these lines, so I keep him and I'm going to breed from him. I have a half brother from him out of a mare that I also bought for her lines, and yeah, so that's I'll breed from him at some stage, even if it's only one crop, just to keep those lines in my horses, just to see how they influence my horses. Now, I jump at 5. If I'm bored enough, I will jump at 4, but I'll only send like 10 challenges to a horse a day, just to see how they're jumping, and I'll only send from their age bracket. I won't send 5-year-olds to a 4-year-old, I won't send 12-year-olds to a 4-year-old, I won't send 4-year-olds to a 3-year-old, if I'm bored enough to challenge 3-year-olds. That's just how I operate. Doesn't mean I'm right, you're wrong, sort of thing. I find that some horses do jump 78 inches at 5, which is great for those horses, but I don't panic if a horse isn't jumping well by age 8. I find between 8 and 12 is generally when they improve best. I do not show my horses until they're about 8. They don't show very well until that age, I found. I board my horses. I explained in a tutorial video about how boarding, like good rank boarding, affects horses. They will not jump very well if they're not in good boarding and if they're not being fed good food. So be sure they're on, say, Rockstar fuel, and they will jump very well. I do not register my horses. I found registering does not affect horses at all. It was just an unnecessary going on that happened every time I foaled that cost me money and had no effect whatsoever. So I just ignore the registries altogether. I do not use items very often. I will use the DNA if I need to sell a horse or put a horse up for stud. I will generally put DNA, like make sure he's both DNA positive, because that will increase people that are interested in that horse. I do not put items on foals unless they have really good lines and really bad stats or something like that. Every now and then I'll use a loyalty heart of gold or a gold leg rat. Not very often though. As you can see, I generally just hoard my items. I will use gold horseshoes if I have a high jumping horse that I want to clone, or if I'm bored and one of my horses is jumping high and I just want another horse to challenge, I'll just use a gold horseshoe. They're worth about 150k now. They're expendable now, pretty much. So I will use horseshoes as well, as you can see, because sometimes I do get very impatient or I forget to breed and I need need foals and stuff. I do not use training items. I do not use the golden cards of pony box and stuff. I used to collect them. I had like a lucky token on Nakota. So yeah, pretty much just I don't use items. That's just me though. Doesn't mean you don't have to use items. Doesn't mean your horses don't need items. It's just how you prefer to do things. This is just how I do things. When I challenge, I go through and I wonder how long this video is so far. Pick a horse. Generally the horse that shows on my best today, even if I haven't already jumped them, will be the horse that jumps the best that day. So I will use that to gauge. Sometimes it doesn't show up because you haven't challenged any horses that day, but this girl here was jumping pretty well. And what I do is I go to their page, I copy their ID, I go and find a horse that I don't own, generally by going through her pedigree or going to the forums. I'll paste the URL up there, and I'll go through and what I'll do is I'll do a whole page. So I'll go from this horse up here, Rika, down to Senora, and I'll just challenge them. Unless it's the start of a new jumping day, then I'll go through and challenge all my under 10s, so all of them. But generally I'll just do, say, 25, then I'll go to open challenges, and 25 horses will show up. I think one page is 25, so that way I don't have to go back to open challenges and hit more challenges through. It's just one quick round. Then it'll come through to close challenges, and from there I read what's happened. Say Hannah has improved, so I'll go to Hannah's page, I'll copy her ID, and I'll challenge her with a different set of horses, different set of 25. And that way I go through all my horses and I find who's jumping best that day. I'll send them a couple rounds each just to see. Some days I will send more, some days I won't. All depends on how well they're jumping. She was only jumping 77.25 the other day, so I stopped. She only got about 80 challenges that day, which isn't that much considering. Over the course of their life they'll get more. They'll improve, I've found, right up till they're about 15 or 16. Some of them stop at 14, some of them go longer, it just depends. So every day they get challenged. The new jumping day ticks over when the new day does. So I'll challenge my horses at night, after work, like after dinner and stuff like that. I'll challenge them, because they might be jumping crap at 4 PM my time, but when the new day ticks over at 6 or 7, suddenly they're jumping well. So that's just generally when I challenge, and then the next day I can challenge them all day if I have time. Sometimes I work though, sometimes I've got school, so challenging them at night when it first ticks over is the way I do things. What else? Shows. I try, like, if I'm really bored or lazy, I'll just enter all my youngsters in a show. Just one show. That's just how I do things. I don't really care. And that'll be that. But sometimes all I do is I only enter the ones that are jumping well that day, because then they'll do the best. That doesn't always work. Sometimes one that jumped 78 inches will only show with 444 points. Sometimes one that was jumping 76 inches will win the show with 495 points. So that's why sometimes I just enter them all. That's just what I found. Yeah, so this is the basic horse tutorial that I have. I'll cover how I breed in another one, because I think I'm running out of time on this video. So yeah, go watch that one.